Tonight, it's my great honor to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. For those of you who aren't familiar with this trailblazer, Judge Victoria Kolakowski is the first openly transgender trial judge in the United States. She was elected to the Alameda County, California Superior Court in November 2010. Since coming out publicly in law school in 1989, she has been a leader in numerous local, state, and national LGBT legal, political, and spiritual organizations. She co-chaired the board of directors of the Transgender Law Center, an organization that's focused on the well-being and protection of transgender individuals. In 2011, Judge Kolakowski served as the Community Grand Marshal for the San Francisco LGBT Pride and was named by the Equality Forum as one of the 31 international icons for LGBT History Month. Last month, she received the first Pioneer in Law Award from California Women Lawyers. Tonight, she is here with her wife, Cynthia Laird, who is the news editor of the Bay Area Reporter, San Francisco's premier LGBT newspaper, and they live in Oakland, California with their Pembroke, Welsh Corgi, Derby, and cat, Espresso. Is that right? Yes. So that's enough for me, and I'd just like to very warmly welcome Judge Kolakowski up here to say a few words for you. So can we give her a round of applause?
Thank you very much. I'm really very, very excited to be here today. And first of all, I want to send my greetings to you from your brothers and sisters in San Francisco in the transgender community who gave me permission to be here today. You see, in San Francisco, the parade is so big that back in the 1990s, the lesbian community decided that they had to have a separate parade so that they would be not ignored on Saturday night, the Dyke March, and the transgender community, not to be left out, decided to have a trans march on Friday nights. And so tonight in San Francisco will be the trans march, which is several hours from now and about an hour or two ago, depending upon when looking at the clock. And so, it gets confusing when I think about the 8-hour time difference coming over here. And I don't even have a TARDIS. And so, you guys do get Doctor Who here, don't you? And so they send their greetings and their love to you. And also, I wanted to just make a comment very briefly that I probably don't look like what you expect a judge to be who will be making a speech to you today. No, and I don't mean because, in fact, in the U.S. we don't wear wigs. I don't know if they do in Ireland. I know they do in England. But because of the fact that we flew, my wife and I flew in yesterday from California. We changed planes in London, and our bags did not. And so we are here and they are somewhere. And so, however, I get to sport the lovely TENI t-shirt, which I was looking forward to. When I first saw it online, I just said I have to have one of these. Now, we're here today. The two of us came out here because, well, honestly, we wanted to be here for Dublin Pride, and so we're gonna be joining you tomorrow at the parade as well. Now, like most Americans, it seems, I have some Irish ancestry. Unlike most Americans, I don't remember that just one day a year, which is March 17th on St. Patrick's Day, back in the United States. Everybody suddenly remembers that they have an Irish ancestor, so that as an excuse to put on some green and to have a plane. And so I'm a genealogist, and so we spent some of today in the National Library for me looking through microfilms, and she asked me not to say anything, but my wife is a saint for putting up with that. And even while we're still waiting for the luggage to arrive. And so I'm really honored just to be able to be here and talk to you. I mean, I know that it's very easy when you do something like this, when you get involved in being a leader in an organization and doing something to think about the fact that all the work that you've done has been done by so few people, and you think, well, we're really not that big and we're not that important. But the truth of the matter is that TENI is an amazing organization that does amazing work, which you can just see by looking at the reports that are over there. And the promotion of networking and leveraging connections with other organizations is really outstanding. And so this is if not the premier transgender rights organization in Europe, and to merely have an opportunity to be at an event that I'm just as excited about it. And I've been tweeting about it and posting on Facebook saying I need to go and speak to these guys, because it's very easy, especially when you're in a community. Well, back home, you see, I come here and everybody's like, oh, you're Judge Kolakowski, and it's an honor. And back home, it's like, oh, that's Vicky, because they know me. And so it's very easy when you're, well, as the scripture says, the prophets never honor in their own land. The truth of the matter is that people from away will look at you and say, what amazing things you've done. And people who are around go, well, it's just you, because, for me, it's just Vicky. And so I'll go outside of the Oakland area and get awards and get invited to speak in there. It's sort of like, oh, there she is, she's talking about herself again. And so, one of the reasons that I ran for position, also I want to just explain. I want to explain, first of all, this whole first elected judge or first transgender trial court judge. And some of you may have seen the press coverage of my campaign back 4 years ago when I was, 3.5 years ago when I was, 4 years ago when I was elected. And I had run in June primary. And I had come in first, but I did not get a majority. As a result, we had a runoff. People did not know that. And so there were all these media organizations that were getting ready to write these stories about first transgender judge. And then we had another election. And so then they started, during the summer of 4 years ago, they ran all these stories about how Alameda County was poised to elect the first transgender judge. And so, and then it was a very tough race. My opponent worked very hard, and we came to November, we had the election, and in California, it takes forever for them to finish counting ballots. We just left, when we left, they still haven't finished counting the ballots in one of the elections back in California. It's too close, a statewide election is too close to call. And that was back in the beginning of the month. It takes them forever to count these things. And so it took like more than 2 weeks for them to finish counting the ballots. And my opponent had not conceded, and so there were no stories about that. And then one day, the final results were announced, and all newspaper stories around the world about how I was the first transgender judge in America, possibly in the world, and multiple languages. I got thousands of hits from like 90 countries, because I was checking the website, including Ireland. And people were reading about this in the media. And then 2 days later, the lesbian mayor of Houston, Anise Parker, appointed Phyllis Fry, who's known in the circles I move as the grandmother of transgender law in the United States, and appointed her to an associate municipal court judgeship and swore her in that day. And I did not get sworn in until January, and so she became the first transgender judge in the United States. And so what happened was the media immediately said they called her, first in Texas, and then all of a sudden people were saying, oh my God, there's 2 of them now. And like they're everywhere, like there's just 2 this week. And sadly, there's still just the 2 of us. But some of us are working to try to get there to be more. But one of the reasons I put myself forward and I worked so hard on this was that I thought that it was important for people to see people like me could be in a position like that one. And in some ways, I liked that I was elected to the position, because my county, Alameda County, is 1.5 million people. It's very diverse in many ways. People think of it as Berkeley in it, and Oakland, California, which are very progressive cities. But just a few years earlier, just a few miles south of where I live, the trial was held at the courthouse where I now serve. Gwen Araujo was murdered, young transgender woman, in my county. And so for the people of my county to elect a transgender person to the bench was, I think, a very powerful message that the people of our community did not tolerate transphobia that way. And because I was in a contested race with a very qualified opponent, the fact that I was successful means that it wasn't just some attempt at trying to promote diversity, but that I actually was qualified. Indeed, I was, I think, the best qualified in the race, or I wouldn't have run. But it's important, I think, for those of us who are in positions professionally where we can do things to step forward. I don't think that everybody has to be out or everybody has to be a public figure about everything, but I felt it was important for people to see, because people encounter people in the legal profession, and the transgender community encounters us, and the legal community encounters the transgender community very often in the ways that we least like, because we might be victims of a crime, or because somebody might have to resort to becoming sex workers in order to support themselves, which I don't know how that is here, but that often happens in the United States because we could not get employment, and we still, as a group, are chronically unemployed and underemployed, even in the United States. Although we may be at a tipping point, we still have a far way to go. We have a far way to go in the United States, where things are so fragmented. Every little state has sets its own laws, and every city and town seems to do its own thing. And I know that there's much work that still has to be done here in Ireland. Now, and a country that I do have some feeling of connection to, since 1/4 of my ancestors came from here. But I think that it's really important that we continue to be both excited and happy about the progress that we've made. And I'm sure that all of you know we've made great progress. Not just in a cultural institution like that, but merely from the fact that you can walk down the street and not get hit with a brick or something. For some of us who've been through this a long time, we'll tell those of you who are younger, and I know there may be some people in the room here who, I don't want to say, how much older I am than you, but some of us remember how hard it was. And we've made so much progress, and it's important for us to remember that. And it's important for us to celebrate Pride, to be happy about the accomplishments we've made, because the truth of the matter is that for the transgender community, at least where I come from, the big holiday of the year is when we get together and remember all the people who were murdered in the previous year, which is a real bummer. And it's important work to do, but we are so much more than that. We are not all victims. We don't have to be, and we need to remember the problems that we have, but we need to celebrate who we are and our accomplishments, because some of the most accomplished people I know are transgender. Some of the bravest people I know are transgender. I tell people that they should hire transgender people, which is the thing I push for where I go places, because of the fact that this is a community of people who are honest, forthcoming, true to themselves, and are courageous. Because even though we may not encounter the same level of hostility, we still encounter so many problems in our lives. It's not an easy path. Nobody chooses this because they think, wow, I think it'd be cool for me to, It's not as trivial as some people who oppose us might think. And so, to live a life that's in any way out of conformance with the way that society normally is. And so we should be proud of that. We should be happy. We've been involved from the very beginning in the LGBT community. We remain involved in LGBT rights and in LGBT issues. And we're the cutting edge of what still needs to be done. Now, I know that in this country, just like in the United States, we're taking our time getting to marriage too. But we're getting there. And I know that here it will happen as soon as a parent. I don't completely understand the political process here, where it seems like people say that they're going to pass a law or put something on the ballot soon, and that means 5, 10 years or whatever. But I know that there's study commissions that are created, and then reports are done, and then there's some studies done, and then there's an election, and then they go back and they redo that. But I know that there's progress being made, socially, if nothing else. And in some ways, that has to happen first. It's very hard for the laws to get too far ahead of where the people are, or else they just won't happen. Even judges not me, but I mean, even judges can sometimes be swayed by what's popular conception of what's right and wrong, and not by what the law may say or what's right to do. And so I wanted to. It's been kind of hard because I've been reading all the advertisement about this, saying, you know, inspirational talk from the inspirational judge, and I've been like, I can't even get my luggage, and so see, so this is what I mean about how important here, you know, I'm an inspiring figure, you know, at the airport, I'm a claim number, and so. But I'm glad that that's the kind of problems that I'm worrying about in my life now. I've been so blessed. I've been so lucky. I've come so far in my life. Just a few years ago, I never could imagine this. I really couldn't imagine me being where I am and us being where we are right now. I don't just mean me and my wife. I mean, you know, us as a community. And so I want to thank you again for being here. I want to wish you a very, very, very happy Pride. I want to encourage you, if you are not planning on doing it, to be there with TENI tomorrow, and where I believe you'll get a lovely one of these T-shirts if you march. I'm going to join you for that. By the way, it's one of the things that I cannot endorse products, or, you know, as a judge, I have to be very careful about what I say. I think I can still say nice things about a civil rights organization. And I can also probably say that I think that those are wonderful cupcakes, without mentioning who they are, or, you know, trying to promote any individual pecuniary interest. But I understand that they're there here and they'll be there tomorrow too. There'll be more cupcakes, but you have to pay for those. But I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, to continue to be believe it or not, an inspiration for people elsewhere, which I think TENI is, and to just have the most wonderful, happy Pride. Thank you so much for your hospitality and for welcoming me here tonight.